Hello, and welcome to Group Re's presentation for the Policy Prescription Project. The purpose of this project was to identify a state whose renewable energy incentives and resources were lacking in some way or another. In doing so, it was our goal to then prescribe policy actions that could potentially spur renewable energy development in that state. The state we chose to focus on for this project was Ohio. We'll dive into the specific reasons behind this choice in just a couple of slides. But first, let's examine the current policy resources within the state. There is a 100% sales and property tax exemption for the commercial and industrial sector in Ohio. Note, this does not apply to the residential sector. The sales tax applies to all systems except solar PV, while the property tax is for all systems but only up to 250 kilowatts. Ohio also offers loads of energy efficiency rebates. These rebates can range from $25 for a simple dehumidifier up to $1,200 for a geothermal heat pump, potentially more once you start talking about the commercial sector. Ohio has a renewable energy portfolio standard of 12.5% by 2026, meaning 12.5% of the state's electricity needs must be met by renewables by 2026, or there will be financial repercussions for the utilities. Net metering is also offered by the utilities within the state. Net metering, of course, being where the utilities will give credit to independent power producers for the electricity they contribute to the grid. Net excess generation is paid at the avoided cost rate. The state also makes interconnection to the grid relatively straightforward for all sectors and technologies. All right, now let's take a look at some of the reasons for developing Ohio's renewable energy policy. A recent decision by the state's Public Utility Commission stated there will be no rollover electricity between months for excess generation from small-scale solar, and that excess would be paid at the avoided cost rate, which is a rather bad deal for homeowners. On top of that, the state provides neither tax credits nor rebates for solar and wind projects, and in many cases, these generous incentives are the impetus needed for construction in the first place. It's worth mentioning that the federal rebates and credits apply, but there are no state-specific ones. A third reason for focusing on Ohio is the exclusion of the residential sector from both sales and property tax exemptions, which only hampers distributed generation within the state. Moreover, the state of Ohio has a relatively untapped wind resource. Estimates place the generation potential at over 100,000 megawatts, while current installed capacity is just shy of 1,000 megawatts. We would like to see the state develop incentives to capitalize more on this resource.
So there are 3 policy prescriptions for Ohio that'd be really useful for just changing the PV landscape and just making renewables like a more attractive option for anyone. So the first policy prescription for Ohio would be a personal and corporate tax credit for residential wind, and this would provide a tax credit for residential systems under 30 kilowatts. And this could be taken advantage of by companies or homeowners, which is really nice. This tax credit would also encourage residential wind adoption in a landscape where there's not really much wind in Ohio that's being used, and it's kind of a shame because it's a really large wind resource that's available. So the second policy prescription would be a PV rebate program. So this would provide a state-sponsored PV program where they would rebate 50 cents per kilowatt on PV systems between half a kilowatt and 15 kilowatts. And this would cap at $2,500, which is not a whole lot of money, but it definitely would lower the price of a PV system and just make it a more attractive option and just allow people to enter the market. So the rebate requirement would focus on small PV development, just because there's no real policies focusing on that in Ohio right now.
The third and final policy we recommend would be to increase the solar carve-out of the Renewable Portfolio Standard. In July of 2019, the Renewable Portfolio Standard went from 12.5% to 8.5%, based on House Bill 6. The solar carve-out also went from 0.5% to 0%. We propose to reinstate a solar carve-out of 2%. Doing this would require utilities to do at least one of two things. They would either have to build more solar themselves, or ideally, they would buy solar renewable energy credits, otherwise known as SRECs. The Rural Energy for America program loan guarantees provides financial assistance for renewables to agricultural producers. Because of this, farmers would be able to use this to build solar PV on their barns and warehouses and whatever open land they may have. They would be able to then sell that electricity to the utility, which would go towards helping the utility reach the 2% solar carve-out of the RPS. Ohio also offers property tax incentives. This means that just because a farmer puts solar PV on their property and the value of the property goes up, their property tax either stays the same or goes up minimally. All of this together would boost the amount of solar PV while providing economic benefits to people living in rural Ohio.
The policies we are introducing will be called the Green Thumb Act. Not only will it be green by saving the environment from greenhouse gas emissions from coal and natural gas, but it will also save the green in your wallet by providing financial incentives to choose a cheaper energy source. The cost of implementing these policies would be that, first and foremost, they would directly be a competition to the underlying jobs in Ohio. Coal and natural gas are the most used energy provider in the state. Switching to renewable energy will leave many without jobs and raise the unemployment rate. If citizens of Ohio were to install a PV system, they could receive a $2,500 maximum rebate so they could pay for their solar systems. Environmentally speaking, currently with natural gas and coal, Ohio is using over 2,000 trillion BTU of energy and produces 2,250 trillion BTU of energy. This could partially be replaced with wind and solar. With this replacement, it would drastically reduce the greenhouse gas emission of CO2 and methane. The CO2 having barely any renewable energy and being ranked 47th out of the 50 states to use renewable energy, the implementation of it would create a boom into the market and increase a variety of jobs, thus creating a healthier economy.
We believe that these proposed policies will lead to an increase in use and development of solar and wind energy in Ohio. Beginning with Policy 1, we believe that a tax credit for residential and corporate businesses will tap into Ohio's wind potential. Ohio does not by any means lead the nation with average wind levels, but there is a lot of land to work with. If more small-scale and large-scale farmers were incentivized through a tax credit to construct turbines in their fields, this would help the local economy as it did in North Carolina. The Amazon wind farm in North Carolina not only increased the supply of local wind energy, but it also created more jobs and an increase in tourism. This project in North Carolina has had a positive impact on the entire community, and we believe the farmers in Ohio are some of the citizens who could greatly benefit from a wind tax credit. Next, we proposed two policies that would increase the growth and production of solar energy. A rebate program would help residents finance photovoltaic installation. California is a state that has been leading the solar movement, and they, in fact, have a rebate program similar to ours. According to Desire, between 2016 and 2017, residential PV systems could be given up to $7,000 for up to 1 megawatt. Our policy has a bit smaller of a maximum, but we believe this would be a good step for Ohio to implement to increase their solar energy production. This policy in California is one of the reasons why they are producing so much solar energy today. Finally, by increasing the solar carve-out of Ohio's RPS, it will force solar growth. Massachusetts is a state that has a large solar carve-out plan for the end of 2020, and this plan helps them produce a large portion of their RPS. Massachusetts did not simply impose a large solar carve-out, however, they eased into their final goal by increasing by about 1% every year. Similarly, if Ohio eases into this solar carve-out goal by 1 to 2% per year,
They could reach a goal of 8.5% in the next 6 years. By following this design, Ohio could easily ease into a plan that does not place strain on the economy and increases jobs in the solar industry. All of these policies will help the wind and solar industries grow in Ohio, just as they have helped in other states. Additionally, other states have reflected economic booms associated with more jobs being created and an influx in tourists wanting to see their new renewable technology.